right. Good morning, everybody. Happy days for whoever's joining in. I know it takes a couple seconds for everybody to fill into here. So while we're kind of filling into the room, do a quick introduction of Ty here, who I have the pleasure of kind of chit-chatting with today. For those of you who don't not know Ty, we were just chatting off stream actually, and we've been kind of interacting, I guess, on LinkedIn for like 6 months or so. Ty's really now in the Web3 and AI space, which is cool. But you've got an interesting history in, you're an ex-Marine, you're a yoga teacher, you've done brewing, which is just this weird combination of things. So I'm super excited to dive into all that kind of stuff. But first off, I like to kick off kind of these shows with just asking you a really simple question, and that is, what are you happy for right now?
What am I happy for? I'm happy for my dog staring at me. I'm happy for the air I get to breathe in. I'm happy for the sunshine. I'm always happy, man. That's
Oh
kind of
man.
the way I live. I live like Winnie the Pooh, as you may say.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's so good, so good. And just want to encourage everybody as well. If you're just tuning into the stream, definitely feel free to jump in the comments, ask some questions. I know we're covering a pretty interesting topic today. We're going to be chit chatting all about AI. Hopefully, if we have time, I want to dive a little bit into the Web3 space as well. So if you have questions on that, Ty's probably got some answers for you. So feel free, fire them into the chat. And without ado, yeah, let's just kind of jump into it. So the first thing I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about is your background. So how did you end up from going from, the military to, yoga teacher to brewing, and now you're minting NFTs and you're in the Web3 and AI space? Like
Sure,
how did
sure.
that happen?
I'll be happy to go over my little background and why I'm here now. So when I was 17, 2 days after my 17th birthday, I signed up for the Marine Corps in the United States, of course, on the Marine Corps birthday. My birthday is November 8th. And that was very special the day I signed up. And I was still in high school, so I had to finish high school. That summer, I went to boot camp, graduated boot camp. Then I went to combat school, and I was a radio operator. So total of 7, 8 months of training. And during that time, I became a Marine. And after that, I was in the reserves for 6 years. And during that time I was in the reserves, I was going to college. I was the first in my family to go to college, first in my family to join the military as well. My dad did construction his whole life, still does construction. My mom didn't really have a career. So like it was up to myself to figure out what I want to do. And after college, I finished my time in the Marine Corps at the same time, basically. And at that point, I kept asking myself, like, what do I want to do with my life? I got my business degree, and the only thing I could think of was, man, I love beer. I like drinking beer, and I just started home brewing, and I enrolled myself in a professional brewing course. And during that time, I was working at a winery after college. I lived up in Northern California, lots of wine up there, and lots of beer up there too. I got a job as an assistant brewer. I started my first online business helping home brewers with their water chemistry for brewing beer. I kind of specialized myself in the water aspect of brewing. And then I became a taproom manager and a head brewer of a very small brewery where I open the doors every day and I close the doors every day for this small brewery in Windsor, California.
Yeah.
And during that, I was brewing for about 3 years at that time. And so next thing you know, I got sick of being told what to do, being bossed around by a rich wine guy working in the brewing industry. So I went to go travel the world. My first time ever out of the United States, went to all over Europe for about 4 months, had a traveling beer blog. And I came back and I got a bartending job for Stone Brewery. And I worked there for about 8 months, and I just got sick of it again. Like I wanted to go travel. I got the travel bug. So I booked a trip to India. This was a new adventure for me. Way out of my comfort zone here.
Was there
But
was there a reason that you chose India of all places? Was
well,
there a
at
motivation
that
for
point,
that?
I started doing yoga my third year of college, and ever since then, I've just been doing yoga. Right, like some like it's been 8, 9 years now since college,
Wow.
and so some years I'll do a lot of yoga, other years I'll do less yoga. Like for example, this past year I haven't done as much, and I'm a little upset about it. I need to get back into it this year, but other years I do it, 5 days, 6 days a week. And so
Wow.
on my bucket list was to become a certified yoga teacher from India, the birthplace of yoga. And I did that. I spent 1 month in Rishikesh, India, in the mountains of the Himalayan mountains, and I got my yoga teaching credentials. And after that, I moved to Barcelona with my goal at that point was to start a brewery in Spain, because I was traveling around Europe. I saw the business opportunity and just the life opportunity to get out of what I used to be doing and make my own life, really live for that adventure. And yeah, ever since then, I'm still in Spain now. I went back and forth from the Netherlands and Spain because as an American, going to the Netherlands is the easiest way to get a visa. They have a special
Oh,
program called
smart.
the DAFT, Dutch American Friendship Treaty, and you need $5,000 and to start your own business, and you can have a 2-year living working visa to go to the Netherlands. And next thing you know, I met a Spanish girl. We fell in love. Now we have a kid, and I'm living on a different Spanish visa now. So
Yeah,
and
man.
there's no breweries here in Spain, so I kind of had to change career paths, and that led me into Web3 about a year and a half ago. And I've been working full time Web3 at least for the last year now, a little over a year now. And yeah,
Wow.
here we are.
That's a journey, man. It's cool to see like how many different paths you kind of took on that journey and the questions you kind of did to yourself, right? Where you're like, oh, that's not quite what I want. How do I go and find what I want? Like you did a lot of that, which is
Mm-hmm.
amazing. What do you think helped you do that? Help you see the need to do a big shift and then have the confidence to just do it and make the big shift?
For me, man, it's always asking myself, asking my heart, what is this the right move? Is this the right choice? Do I feel confident and comfortable here? Is there when I am 80 years old, will I look back at these choices I've made and be happy I've made them, or will I have wished I chose something else?
Mm,
And for me, I want to have the most adventurous, most fulfilling resume at the end of my life. That's my personal mission, right? And so, what does that mean? Well, I should if I stayed in the United States, I would have had a more easy life. I had my family there, my friends there. I had easy jobs whenever I wanted. But I asked myself, will I be proud that I stayed there, or will I be more proud if I make the decision that the other thought in my head was to go to Spain and start a brewing business here? And I thought that would be the better, more adventurous life path. So I chose
yeah.
that, and every decision since then, it's been based off that, right? Like, will I be proud of this choice? Does it push me? Am I always pushing my own boundaries? Things like that.
Yeah.
I guess that's my
Can you
path
think
to
of
where I'm
where
going.
that maybe came from? Like, was that something that you learned in the training with the military? Was to push yourself out of your comfort zones? Like, where did that kind of come from?
Yeah. I think a lot of it does come from the military, like especially at a 17-year-old, right? I was the youngest in my group, and most of the guys were 19. Some were 18, some were 20. We had like a 126-year-old, but I was the youngest. And I've always been the youngest in my class for school and everything. I was the young one. And I like to just be the first, the one to just do it, like
Mm-hmm.
just go for it. Um, Stemming back deeper than Marine Corps, I think it comes from my like not great childhood. Maybe I didn't get enough attention as a kid, or we didn't grow up wealthy, and I didn't get the things that other kids got. And that goes into why I want to do so much now, yeah, on a deeper level.
Yeah, that like, yeah, I feel you there completely. Where you're like, oh, you see these things that are possible, and then you start to say, okay, how can I do those things that are possible, and
Mm-hmm.
how can I make those things happen? And it seems like you've really done that. Like, hats off to you for what you've accomplished because it's
Thank
pretty
you.
incredible. Um, it really goes to show what you can do when you just try something. And it's that thing that you hear lots of times where it's, oh, what the whole deathbed thing, right? Where it's like what people often say is, oh, I wish I would have done these things. And you don't want to
Yeah.
be in that position, right? You don't want to look back at your life and go, oh, all these things I could have done instead. And you've
Mm-hmm.
just gone, you know what? I'm going to try them. I'm going to see if they work. And for you, it seems like
Yeah.
they have worked. And I'm sure you've done lots of things that haven't worked. I mean,
Oh yeah.
we could probably go on for a long time about,
Sure we
things that
can.
maybe failed or, right? But that's part of it, right? And when you look back, you generally don't see those things in a macro picture. You're like, oh, cool. Like, look at all these things
Exactly.
I've done. And,
Yeah,
there's
you,
probably
you
a neat
don't
thing
look
to do
back and
there.
you don't count the failures so much, right? You look at the
Yeah.
successes at the end of your life.
Yeah, yeah, Shannon just said, I was just, this is where my brain would think is I wanted the most fulfilling resume, which is great, right? Like, if you try to build your life in that sense. We don't put the things that we failed at on our resume, right? You only put the successes. So that's the way that you should kind of live and celebrate as well. So getting into, because I want to kind of get into the big thing that I want to chit chat with you about is obviously artificial intelligence. And it's a big thing right now. Obviously, with ChatGPT has exploded in the last few months and everybody's talking about it now. I mean, AI has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just now really coming to our forefront a little bit. So for yourself, what was, your first initial kind of maybe interaction with AI, and why did you feel the passion to kind of learn more about it?
Sure. It was not that long ago, just like most people, I'm sure, right? Maybe I remember I made a post about OpenAI's Playground. It's extremely similar to ChatGPT, but not a lot of people know about it. And so when ChatGPT was down for like the last couple of weeks, I was funneling people into the Playground. Very similar. And I made a post about that, and I wouldn't say the post blew up, but it got like 100 likes on LinkedIn and a good amount of impressions. And at that point, I was thinking, wow, this is something big if people are interacting with it so much like this. So I got into it more, and I started I didn't know too much about it, so I started learning what is AI, how is it created, what is machine learning, and I would just use AI to tell me about AI. And next thing you know, I'm starting to work with AI art, and you type something, and a picture comes up. That's something from fantasy right there, And I've always been a big nerd, big geek, such as fantasy like that. So with this, the text to image, it really piqued my interest, and I got into Midjourney, Discord bot, hugely. I created a whole NFT project based off that truly. And yeah, I've been using ChatGPT Playground for a while. I wrote blogs with it. I came up with like marketing campaigns for it. And yeah, that's how I started really not too long ago, few months ago, just like most people.
Yeah, it's neat because so your NFT project, which is with the Wookiees, right? That's kind of
The Wokies, yeah.
Wokies, yeah. I love that. So that's all been AI stuff, like that's all been influenced through AI.
Yep, it's all the art is done through different prompts I come up with, or I have AI help me with the prompts even.
Yeah.
And then they pump out Midjourney pumps out an image, and based off Midjourney's guidelines, you're able to sell these images if you pay for their services, which I do. So yeah, I just came up with cool different Wookiees art pieces, only 300, so not a crazy amount, but
yeah.
Yeah, it's more of a passion project. Let's try what this can do.
Let's see what it'll do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's dive into that, because I think one of the big grounds, because it sounds like you're using AI a lot for creatives, which is what I do that a lot as well. I really help it with ideation and stuff like that. It's amazing. I mean, the amount of data it can parse and then give you something is we can't compete with that. There's just no way. Our brains don't work fast enough.
Yeah.
But that is really the conversation that I'm seeing a lot of right now, is these issues that are now coming up about people in the creative space who are necessarily maybe worried about AI. And I mean, we could look at the history of people being worried about machines taking their jobs. It's always been a thing. So right now that's the big conversation, especially with things like writing and visuals, especially with the AI art that's coming about. I guess, what is your opinion when it comes to people from that perspective who are the creative and who are like, oh man, this AI is going to like take over my job and I'm going to lose what I can do for a living?
I mean, I think there will always be a need for humans, but really AI will make a big dent in that, right? I think in maybe 5 to 10 years, 80% of such creative jobs as artists, writers will be either implemented or replaced by some sort of AI. Because they can come up with an infinite amount of creative things that it may take you 1 hour to come up with one good creative idea. For them, they can come up with thousands or millions even of these creative ideas. And yeah, right now they can do art, like pictures, they can do blogs, they can do stories, the comic books, screenplays, like you name it, right? And I almost guarantee in the next year to 3 years they'll be able to do just movies. You can type a prompt and they'll give you a TikTok video,
Hmm.
all created, probably with people like ourselves that look just like us, interact just like us.
Do you
It's
think then
great.
the art comes into the deciding which of those is going to be the have the most impact? Because if it can create hundreds of thousands of ideas, much like, okay, I mean, we could sit down and draw tons of pictures, not to the same level of skill, but
Yeah,
it's ultimately the right one of those that's going to have the biggest impact, right? I mean, you can make 100,000 Hollywood movies, but if it's not the right director, so to speak, or the right person
yeah.
with the right vision making it, it's not going to do well. So is that maybe like where the the art comes in? Is the people who are really skilled at picking the right thing?
I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, what is art, right? Art's in you can't describe it. It's something that comes from the heart out to the world. It's your expression of your heart out to the world. And what kind of art sells? Is it always the best looking art, the most, makes you think kind of art? What kind of art sells? From my experience with art, it's who is the artist? What has does that person have a reputation? Or are they just a random person? They could have no social media following, no nothing, and they come up with a great piece of art. Maybe they'll get a lot of social following, but if someone who has a huge social following and big influence comes out with a MFer looking NFT project, like that sells.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Yeah, it is
depends on the
interesting.
person.
Yeah, I think it definitely like it does empower people to do a lot more though, which is great. That's what I love about it, right? It enables you to do it a lot more. Like Naomi says here, she's considering using A art to create her cover art for her albums, right?
Absolutely.
But again, it needs to be the right art, right? So
Yeah.
which kind of goes back in that conversation. It's like cool. Well, normally, Naomi would have to find an artist and pay them to create it. So yes, is that artist not necessarily going to get that work? Completely. There is definitely. I mean, I can't pretend that that's not going to happen. But at the
Yeah.
same point
Yeah.
in time, on the other side of that coin, it now allows Naomi to potentially release her albums and release her music and get them to a bigger audience now that they have a cover art and stuff like that. And like you said, even farther, in probably a couple of years, maybe less, she'll probably just be able to put prompts in and have a whole music video being created, a whole animated video, right? That then now she
Absolutely.
can hit a whole other audience with. So there's definitely like, I really love this conversation because there's like the upswings and the downswings, right? Like anything. I
That's
mean,
life.
yes, that is life, right? There's upswings and downswings. No, very well said. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were like, or might have even been Gary Vee or something. Somebody said it somewhere on social media, and they were like, "Do you know what people said about tractors when they first came out?" It was the same thing, right? Like they're going to take our jobs. I remember
Yeah.
reading a book about when the record player first came out, and musicians were horrified, and they were like, we're never going to be able to play live music anymore. Live music is going to die. Everybody's just going to want records. People will stop singing to their children because they'll just play music off records. You know, they were the huge pushback against that. But if anything, it actually unlocked a lot of the musical um, society that we have now with albums capabilities. Thank you, that was the word. With albums and into streaming, like you can see that evolution looking back. So it does make me really curious to like, okay, sure, some people are going to lose some stuff, right? There are going to be some jobs missed, but if we can adapt and change, it'll be neat to see what we can go from there. Like, interestingly enough, your journey is very much adapting and changing, and look where you are now. If you hadn't adapted and changed, you would have maybe just been doing construction for your entire life,
I
right?
say that all the time.
Yeah. So, which is interesting. What are you most excited about right now in the AI space?
Oh man. Well, I'm pretty excited to see what capabilities Chat GPT-4 happens to come about. I know it's really not too far away. I can't give you exact date. I really don't know, but like I posted an infographic, I guess, of Chat GPT's like just a very small little dot. Chat GPT 4 is huge, so it has like 100x the what do you call it? The manpower, the processing
Mm-hmm.
power of Chat GPT 3, and it's updated up to 2023. So what's gonna happen then? How is that going to change the space? I'm also interested in the renewed amount of devs working with artificial intelligence, the development space. There's so many projects in the works right now, and there's projects probably every day being pumped out. You were mentioning music, like music videos being pumped out, and you can make music. AI can make music for you now, right? So,
Wow.
and it's hard to differentiate like a classic Bach song to an AI classic Bach song. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it's
So
funny because Naomi just said that she's like she does backtracks with AI.
yep,
She
yep,
said it's not quite right to get it. It needs some
yep.
tweaking still. Like any new thing that comes out, it's going
Yeah,
to take
of
some time
course.
to adapt and change, right? But it's neat that you brought that up as well. That the evolution is really interesting. The rate of change that it's happening as well is just exponential. It's wild.
Exponential. Yep.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast and it was like in 1960s, I think the average inventions per year was 6. If you compare, like that's like a week nowadays,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the exponential change is insanely quick, and part of that leads to the pushback of it, right? And
Of
so I'm
course.
curious about what your opinion is, because you probably deal with a lot of this. You're in a very innovative space, very forward thinking. How do
Mhm.
you sort of talk with people, or what's your opinion on why we're so adverse to those intense levels of change?
I think it's just like humanity, right? If everyone resists change at first until it's upon you, like no one wants to start going to the gym, but once you're at the gym, you don't really care. You don't think about it. It becomes a habit over time. But nobody, you fight it. You fight going to the gym. I don't want to go for that run. Things like that. Um, and one thing, like I'm so advocate of technology, AI, Web3, blockchain technology, is because I know technology doesn't go backwards, right? We're not going to go back to the steam engine. We're not going to go back to no internet. Can you even imagine that? Like the whole world is the internet now. We're not really what I want from humanity is go towards a robotic life. I think we should go back to humanitarian life, but you can't fight technology. You have to implement it into your daily life however you see fit. Um, so yeah, I think that the future is scary, definitely is, but just as scary, just as exciting, right? Everything has
Mm-hmm.
two balances, love and hate, black, white, light, dark, that nature,
Mm-hmm.
scales. So as exciting as it is, as scary as it is, Terminator could be a reality, but so can, I don't think they have a utopian version of that, but I think, how can we use robots for
Yeah,
greatness?
think of the
Even all the
possibilities,
construction
right?
and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm big on this concept with that, where if you look at history when we had big changes happen, the main one that I always think about is the change of agriculture, right? When we started into
Yeah.
farming and agriculture took off, and through that, the Renaissance was born. And what came from the Renaissance, and it feels a lot like that, where it's like, okay, this big change is going to happen. We are going to not lose, gain. I'm going to use the word gain instead. We're going to gain the ability to not have to look after certain things. What can we then fill that time with, right? What are the possibilities that will come if we suddenly move into a world of abundant information sharing and the abundant ability to create and transform? Like, yeah, I just find it really, really interesting, because it's, to use the same like scary metaphor, it's like staying stagnant is almost just as scary as moving forward quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, it's knowing, but in some senses, it's like, yeah, but we will never know if we don't do, to go back again to
Exactly.
your journey, right? Which is really interesting. Um, do you think so? You obviously quite good at this, like embracing and adapting and changing things and stuff like that. You've obviously something that you've done a
Mhm.
lot of in your life, which makes it a lot easier to do. Where do you see kind of things going as we move forward with AI? And if we were to project a little bit forward.
Mm, with AI, I think like there's going to be so much new creators. We're moving into a creator economy if we're not already in one, right? Everyone will have some sort of their own creative outlet, whether it's AI music, AI blogs, AI videos, whatever. That capability is at the hands of everyone who has the internet now, which like the whole world basically has internet. It puts the same playing field on a kid in Africa who has the internet to a kid in Malibu, California. Same playing field. They can be just as creative with the help of AI. They don't need to have that college education, in which college is teachers, like any knowledge based skill is gonna not be replaced by AI, but will be greatly impacted by AI because their knowledge is it's impossibly forever. They can come up with anything. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's gonna definitely change the world for the greater.
What do you think are some of the, obviously with the need to adapt and change and stuff like that, what are some of the good things that come out of being comfortable with that, of, embracing and adapting?
What's good about being able to adapt, you're saying?
Yeah, like even for yourself, what if, you noticed about that ability to change and adapt that, you were like, yeah, I'm really glad I do this because of X, Y, and Z?
I think when you're able to and you're willing to adapt, it makes life much more smooth. Like there's no pressure, there's no resistance. And yeah, like even for me, I still get anxious going and even speaking sometimes, right? I was a very shy kid my whole life, grew up pretty fat, and had a big red face, and people would laugh at me, and still that anxiety is still with me. But you just do it, and the more you do it, just like I've done with all this adapting and moving places, joining the military. I was in a fraternity in college, like going up on stage and doing stupid stuff. Like the more easy it gets. That's all I gotta say, right? Like the more you do it, the easier it gets. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's like practice with anything, right? The more you do it, the better you become at it, and the easier it comes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's really, really cool. Do you think if you were to look back to like when you first joined the military, compared to like when you say decided to move to Spain, right? Like, how would you compare those two things?
Yeah, man, joining the military, when I signed the papers, it wasn't so difficult. The difficult part came when the recruiter came to my home. I was living with my grandparents. When he came to my home to pick me up to go to boot camp, right? At that point, I'm alone. I'm 17-year-old alone. Don't exactly know what I'm going into the fog, right? I don't know what the hell boot camp entails. Similar feeling with going to Spain, but now I have more experience. Now I'm okay with going into the fog because whatever happens, I'm either going to live or die. If I die, so be it, right? This is God's will, as you may. And you just embrace it like that. I'm going to try to make the most of this experience. If I die, I die. Let's see what kind of good experiences I can have. And whether they're good or bad, they're still experiences. You can put that in your bucket list of life. And
I love that.
An important thing.
That's cool. I like that you use the whole fog metaphor there, and the way that it's even though, like you said, Spain was similarly walking into the fog, you had the experience of being like, yeah, I've done this before. I know that, yeah, it's unknown, but I know that I can handle unknown now.
Yeah, exactly. And before I decided to move to Spain, I visited Spain too. So that helped a lot, right? But India, on the other hand, that one was a trip, man. Going to India is a whole different ball game than going to Europe. And I did it by myself. Whereas when I came to Spain in Europe for the first time, I had a travel buddy, brewer friend of mine. So being alone in a different language, different culture, whereas Western culture is still pretty relevant in Europe, it's not so relevant in India. And so just a crazy different experience going to India.
Yeah, I always tell people to travel by themselves because it teaches you what you're really capable of. When there's nobody else to lean on and you have to make the decisions, and if there's a bus that you have to catch, you have to make sure you know when it's coming. And it's interesting. I think it makes you mature very, very quickly, and then gives you that confidence to be like, oh, I can do this. I can actually do this. When even humanity, when we're pushed into a corner, that's when we become really, really aware of what you're capable of doing. Which, I mean, if I'm going to bring this full circle, is what will happen with the AI space, right? Like,
okay, cool. We're almost at that point.
Right? Oh, if we lose access to all of these things, well, then what? What do we do now, right?
Yeah.
What do we become? What do we do with it? So that's really interesting. You've probably made, I want to get into mistakes a little bit because there's going to be mistakes with AI, right? What do you think in your opinion, when it comes to learning from mistakes, stuff like that, like are there mistakes in brewing that you made that maybe make you sort of more comfortable with just making those mistakes and just going for it?
Yeah, I mean, mistakes are part of the journey, right? Like if you go into something new and you expect to make no mistakes, you're fooling yourself. Mistakes are guaranteed to happen. And honestly, as like if I was a CEO of a major company, the person I want to look for is a guy who's made the most mistakes. Because that means he's tried the most different things. And that means he probably has the most experience. Um, and so, yeah, I think mistakes are vital.
Do you
I make
think
mistakes all the time.
do you think that we will make mistakes with AI, or do you think AI will be able to make mistakes?
Ooh, yeah, I mean, I know ChatGPT makes mistakes right now, right? Especially since it's not up to date on the years. So, I mean, it depends what's programmed into it. But with machine learning, they'll be able to program themselves. They'll just write their own codes that it's
Mm-hmm.
updated and perfect as perfect can be. And what happens when someone puts a error in a code and makes history wrong? And in that, then that super machine has a wrong history and it promotes it to the other machines. And I don't know, man, it's a crazy crazy world to think about.
There's a weird connection there with how we've the society evolved, right? Where maybe we have a wrong opinion and we give that to the next generation, and et
Totally,
cetera, et
dude.
cetera. So
It's
I guess
his
maybe we should
story, right?
I guess maybe we should look a little closer at ourselves before we begin to kind of rebuttal the computers for making those similar mistakes.
Yeah.
On to that topic, interestingly. Go ahead if you had something.
Oh, I was just saying, I think we're like trying to replicate God in a way that we're starting to make robots with art with sentient intelligence. I mean, I don't want to get too philosophical, ancient on you, but like, what happened the last time we tried to play God and create humanity? Not so good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting when you look into the path like that. So with that in mind, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about Web3.
yeah.
So um, I want to get into a couple things, but before we do, just what would you, if you had to some of our listeners and stuff like that, what if you could just give a simple definition to what Web3 is, what would that be?
It's a decentralized version of the web. Very, very basic. And what is decentralization? Meaning not one company, not one person holds the powers. We all hold the power of a decentralized blockchain, right? That's the very basic definition. Decentralized version of the web.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I like that. That's good. Web 2 then is what a lot of people kind of refer to where we are now with the web in the space of social media. That's very much
Yeah,
Web 2, and it's owned by Google, Facebook, I guess
exactly.
Meta,
Yeah.
Google, Amazon. These are the big players who own the web, so to speak, right?
Hmm.
How can we learn from the mistakes made in Web 2 as we move into Web 3, or what will Web 3 solve some of the mistakes that Web 2 has created?
Mm, I'm hoping that in the future, Web3 will truly make it a creator economy, right? Like, if you're a one individual and you have a huge audience because you've been creating content all the time and people follow you, you've done this yourself. You own that content, not Facebook. Whereas right now, you have a big audience, but you're on Facebook. It's really Facebook's audience. It's really Facebook's content. And I think going forward, that's how we can best use it in the social networks anyways, is that it's
Mm-hmm.
our content, it's our rights reserved.
instead
Yeah.
of instead of the big players. And I've talked to lots of cool people who are in that same space with when it comes to like finance and our social
Mm.
data and our own information. That Web3 will give us the ability to have that back, which is very much it is ours to begin with. So it seems weird to not
Yeah,
have it anyways.
yeah, exactly, right.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about like the creator economy, and I'm just wondering if maybe if you want to kind of dive into that a little bit more of what you think, why you think it's so important to have this creator economy.
I mean, as I say before, right, to give the power back to the people. That's for me. That's one of my biggest missions in life is freedom, truth, bringing the power back to the people, get it out of the hands of the centralized 0.01% who are happening to meet in Davos as we speak. Is that the kind of world we want to live in, where a small group of usually old white men dictate the outcome of the whole world. Not for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the creator economy promotes is freedom in that sense, where those guys don't tell me how much I get to charge for my TikTok video or how much I get for that, because it's my followers and this is my content.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
What do you think will be some of the bigger changes then as we shift to having more control over our stuff?
I think we'll see more true speech. I think, well, it's been a pretty crazy last 3 years with censorship. I think Web3 will, in a sense, delete that censorship, meaning you'll be able to post pretty much whatever you want. I think in general, people aren't crazy and they won't go posting crazy videos of murders or something. Like, sure, you'll probably always find those crazy ones, and it's difficult because right now even the Web3 companies have some sort of centralized power. So if someone did post a crazy video, that centralized power can go and delete that video if it, But as we move into a true decentralized world, if that's really what we want, is a completely decentralized, no centralized power, maybe that will be okay. But typically they won't get any views. Who knows, right?
Mm-hmm. Do you think it will help? So with both AI and as we move into Web3, as we able to create more, do you think it will allow the voices who are maybe less in that negative space to get out more and have more access to be able to get out? Because one of the things right now that happens is negativity is very loud, but like you said, most people aren't that way, right? Most people don't want to post unhappy videos and nasty things. There's probably a lot of us out there. There is a lot of us out there who are into the happier things, to put it bluntly. So will this allow those types of people to go? And then, if that happens, will we have more of the good in that space?
I think so. I think, there's always a balance of love and hate, good and bad. But at the end of the day, good always wins. Light always wins.
Mm-hmm.
I think AI will give a voice to all those who don't want to make videos, who don't want to go on podcasts, who don't want to post Instagram photos every day. AI can do that for them. They can. I almost guarantee in the future everyone will have some sort of a helper robot or a freaking drone hovering over your head doing, making all these posts for you, and you can train that drone off your, language, how you speak and your dialect, and it can just make posts for you. You just you press one button and it does one LinkedIn post a day. It does 2 YouTube videos a day for you, all with artificial intelligence based off your dialect. And so it gives a voice to everybody. Whereas Web2 right now, only the ones willing to put in the effort and make the content have that voice. So
why do you think it's important that everybody has the ability to have that voice?
Because I think we're all one species, right? We're all part of one soul, one light, and so we each have a voice, and it's our right to share that voice with the world. And the more you get into spirituality, the more you want to help others find their light, and that's a big mission, right? Like it's a hard path because the as you said, like, the world is full of a lot of negativity, ego, right? Hey, look at me, I did this, I. Yeah, but what about us, right? So I think AI will help give more voice to those wanting and willing to better the world. That's
What do
a
you
big mission.
think? Yeah, that's really good. I like that. What would you say your voice is?
It's definitely truth, bringing truth and freedom, right? I didn't know it when I first signed up to the Marines, but I signed up to fight for freedom. Did I know anything about freedom at the time? Did I know who the enemies were? No, I just followed what the guys above me told me, right? I didn't have much of my own free thought. as I still have that Marine Corps mentality, I also have, I read a book a week for like the last 7 years, right? I love philosophy, education, learning, spirituality. I now realize who the true enemies are. And my mission is to bring freedom to the world. And I think for me, it's best to do that from the tip of the spear with tech, such as AI, Web3, to be, a voice for those coming into the space, because it's still so brand new, for the next 5, 10, 20, until I die, really. So that's my mission.
That's so good. That was good. I'm glad we kind of went there. I want to talk a little bit about as well your current kind of project that you're running right now, which is your Meta Brew. Is that's
Yeah,
correct,
yeah, of
right?
course. I'd love to
Yeah,
talk.
yeah. What's the overarching concept behind Meta Brew?
Yeah, so it's called Meta Brew Society. It's we launched in September. We had the initial idea back in April, and it started with 6 or 7 individuals, all from Germany, Frankfurt, Munich area, Bavaria. And I was planning on launching my own second small NFT project called Metadads. And with the proceeds from that, I wanted to start a tap room here in Benidorm, where I live in Spain. I found their project on Twitter, and I was messaging them, hey, we have a pretty similar project, both beer related and blah, blah, blah. And turns out the owner, his name's Holger, he was interested in me because he saw I was a professional brewer, also in the Web3 space. There's not many of those. And so he flew me out to Germany. I met up with them and met the team, and saw what they're working with, and I was impressed. Right, like they have much more initial startup capital than I ever could imagine. And so he wanted to basically combine forces, and they brought me on as a co-founder. And I've been kind of helping develop the community, as well as still getting this tap room started here in Benidorm. I just got the okay basically this morning to go ahead with this certain location we were looking at. I'm in touch with the lawyers right now to get the business entity set up, and we're hoping to open in May. And about
Wow.
the NFT itself, we're still having a mint. We started with 6,000 initial NFTs. We sold about 1.5 thousand, which at $1,000 a piece is a pretty penny, right? For as you were
Yeah.
saying before this, like 30% money back within the first year, within the first really 3 or 4 months alone is pretty good starting point.
Hmm.
Um, and as we get the tap room going, and we have our initial viable option market, whatever you want to call it. And for the first year, we have a small tap room. After that, we'll expand into a bigger location. And we have many other tap rooms about to open up. We have one in Costa Rica that wants to start, one in Las Vegas. We also have a beer fest in Las Vegas since April, I believe it is. We had our first beer fest in October in our brewery in Germany. We have a $3 million brewery in Germany. We ship beer all over the world. The first 2 batches were a Helles, a German Helles, and a German Marzen,
Wow.
which Marzen was the first beer that got me into craft beer many years ago.
So it felt pretty
it,
right to
it
do
was
that
a
one, eh?
match made in heaven for my
Yeah.
beer, and Web3, yeah.
That's man, what an interesting story. It's cool that you talked about. We talked a little bit about this off stream as well. How important the community that you've developed around that is. And what's interesting is a lot of people who've come on my podcast talk about the importance of that community and that togetherness and that kind of striving towards a common goal. Um, so I did want to ask for you, why is that tight knit community so important?
I mean, when just like anything, right? There's not a lot of people in the Web3 space. So when new people come into the Web3 space, they want a group of like-minded individuals that they can vibe with at a bare minimum. And so our mission at Meta Brew Society is to be the #1 beer community in the space. And I think we've accomplished that. Like, any beer lover wants to come into our community, we have special beer rolls for the brewers. We call them brewers that come into our community. We have beer reviews where people review different beers from all over the world. And if they do enough reviews and they're active enough in our Discord, we meritoriously give them a brewmaster role, which with that role comes certain perks, like you get first samples of our experimental beers, like our Bavarian Pale Ale that's going to be released soon. These guys will get the brewmasters will get the first samples of that. And that creates sort of like a something to strive for once you're in the community. And we have a homebrew club there. I homebrew also. I've done like 20 batches here in Spain.
Wow.
And I'll lead courses even. Like I've had Twitter spaces where I talk about brewing, starting from all the different ingredients, how to analyze a beer, different styles of beer, things like that. So when it comes to community, you need to have a mission. A lot of projects don't have a mission. For us, it's number one, beer community. For the Wokies, it's to inspire freedom, truth, and it, hopefully on a path to reach enlightenment later in your life, right? Or even now if you're super dedicated.
Yeah. What have you noticed about people as when they first enter the and I want to talk more actually let's go into the Wokies, because I think it'll be a better impact. What have you noticed between when people start into that community versus say 6 months, a year, 2 years of time in
I mean, we've only been around for like 2 or 3 months, right? It's very brand new community, and
it's a good time to get in then, if anybody's listening.
Yeah, totally. Like, it's just the beginning, right? As we're still early, everyone says, that's true. We are still early. Like I said many times, like 98% of the population that uses the internet even don't use Web3. I can go into like why I think what's stopping mass adoption, but nonetheless, you have the opportunity to build that community for people like us, people like yourself, people like your community. Once they come into the Web3, they're looking at you because they're like you, and that's who you want. You want people like you. If they're not like you, I mean, sure, you can have them in community, entertain them and stuff, but really they maybe vibe better in a different community, and that's okay. We're not for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's neat that we are developing these. I think as we become more comfortable with the online world, so to speak, you do notice these developing communities come out, which is neat because we really need that. It's human beings. Being part of a community is really important to us. That sense of belonging is very important. Mm-hmm. So it's cool that we're seeing more and more of these come out. And as we get more into the creative economy, people will have the ability to join these communities easier and feel like they're a part of it, and not just an onlooker, but really part of it when they're as they create and stuff like that, right? What drove you to the woke Wokies? What was the passion behind that?
Sure. I had this like, I want to inspire truth. I want people to think for themselves, right? That's a big mission of mine, along with freedom, truth, all that, is to inspire thought for themselves. And what's a good word for that? Woke, right? I know that the word woke gets thrown around a lot, but I don't know much of another word that would hit that feeling. So woke Wookiees. Okay. I like Star Wars. I've always been a big nerd like that. So it just kind of vibed off the tongue well. That was another reason. I could have done like woke walruses or something. But I thought woke
doesn't quite have the same marketing sort of hit, does it?
Yeah, exactly. And it just came together like that. I like Star Wars. I like here. This is how much I like Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Like I have a Star Wars cup that I drink out of every day. I have little miniatures on my desk and stuff. Anyways, that was the reason for calling it the Woke Wookiees, and I started using Midjourney and coming up with different prompts for creating this AI Wookiees. And I would do things like Simpsons style Wookiees, and it comes up with a cool Simpsons style. I would do like Rick and Morty vibes, and I would have like a lo-fi color Wookiees, things like that.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So like really, I mean, the ability to use that AI and stuff like that enabled you to sort of start kind of chasing something that you were really, really passionate about and turn it into a small side business, so to speak, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it
Yeah,
is a
and
side
without
business
that,
right now. I mean, as we move forward, maybe it becomes a main business, or maybe I don't want it to be a main business, but it's more of a passion project, right?
hmm
The goal is to build the number one community of freedom-loving truth seekers. That's my
hmm
goal. If I can maintain consistency over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, when the mass adoption is inevitably going to happen for Web3, uh, people that are in support and seeking these kind of communities like freedom fighters, truth seekers, they find me, right? They find the
hmm
Wokies. Um, yeah.
Are you using AI in any other ways in either of those two communities?
I'm not using AI for Meta Brew Society. I am using AI for the Wokies to create the art, obviously. Um, I kind of would do some riddles and some poems. I did it mainly off the top of my head, but I got some ideas from AI. So a
hmm
mixture of AI / my own original thoughts.
Yeah.
Besides that, oh yeah, I did. I launched a Web3 basics course on the main website, multi-layered marketing, and I made videos. The videos, all the art was AI art. All the text was AI, and the video itself was created using AI. So basically, an AI course.
Yeah. For is it for AI or is it for Web3?
That is for Web3. The course is called Web3 Basics.
Yeah. That's so neat. I think it's cool that this journey into AI is allowing us to even share even more information. I mean, you see it happen when the internet first came out and that like
Yeah.
surge of information. And it was suddenly, oh, now we can just Google things and I can look it up on
No,
Wikipedia.
exactly.
And now it's like, now I can just ask ChatGPT.
Just
I
do
don't even
everything
have to
for me,
find
right?
it. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm optimistic, so I'm really optimistic about
We have to
what
be.
it will allow. Yeah, I love that you just said that because I think you have to be because the
Yeah,
alternative isn't great.
exactly, right. Sure, I
And like
can
you
sit
said, it's
here and
inevitable.
it's inevitable. I mean, you can't fight technology. Imagine trying to fight the internet if you're like, you know, well, I guess you can get away right now with not using internet if you're a construction worker, but it really it's impacted 85-90% of all jobs, the internet. I'm assuming that AI will be just the same.
It'll be like not using electricity eventually. Like
Yeah,
it'd be
yeah,
really,
yeah,
really. You
exactly.
can. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's people that don't, but it'll make it a lot harder.
And I think like cryptocurrency is the same. We're moving from we moved from trading cows and wheat to trading silver and gold. We moved from trading silver and gold to trading paper. Now we're moving from trading paper to digital
hmm
currencies, right? How long does that transition take? I don't know. Maybe I wasn't around when we moved from gold to paper, but
Yeah.
it could
I
take
was going to start
years.
wrapping up, but I have a question that came to
Sure,
mind that
sure.
I want to dive into instead, actually. So, apologies. Do you have anything at the end of this, or can we
No,
push
no,
over a little
I'm
bit?
free. I'm free.
Okay, cool. All right. Because I think this is going to be really good. Do you think AI will help us or enable us to move past sort of some of the um, mistakes that we've created, kind of on a planetary or societary level?
Um, yeah, I think they have the potential to. It depends what they're programmed to do, and the intention of the creators. Just like the intention of a gun, for example, the creator probably had a bad thing in mind. Therefore, guns will naturally have that inherent energy of negativity. If we create AI and with intention to be positive, it will most likely have a positive impact. If we want to use AI to ease our life, that's probably what it will do. However, we intend it to be used, most likely it'll have that energy for the rest of its livelihood. Um,
That's my new favorite quote that you just said. Is if we build AI with the intent of positivity, it'll have a positive
yeah,
impact.
I mean,
That's so huge.
I
Like if
hope
you
so,
if you
man.
if you, because that's you're so right on that aspect. It's just like it's up to us to see what we do with it,
Yeah,
not
it's
necessarily
always up to
what
us
happens
and
with it. It's up
everything
to
in
us.
life, right? You can never
Yeah.
blame anything but yourself. It's everything ever created is right here in your head, in the thought.
Man.
You can look around you. Everything created was a thought. The phone started as a thought. The internet started as a thought. Everything's just in our brain. You close your eyes and there's nothing.
Yeah, that's really good. I want to quickly go to a question here that Naomi asked as well. She said, what will this do for mental health? Have you seen anything of it? Do you have any kind of thoughts on maybe what it will do to help with, because that's a big issue that's happening in society right now that we're becoming more and more aware of, right? Is our own mental well-being. So how will AI sort of, or even for that matter, the creator economy help with that?
Well, I mean, I can give you my tips for avoiding mental health problems, right? Like I've just like most people nowadays, I've had some sort of mental health problem, right? I've had family members commit suicide. I've had a lot of problems with that. And how do I fight that? Not including AI, eat healthy, touch grass, meditate, do yoga, things like this. Get away from the computers, right? Like, as much as I want to be for AI, I am more for humanity, for your own sake. And I think you need to find a good balance. I wouldn't rely on AI to help with mental health. I think you should always rely on yourself. But
Do you
I'm
think
sure
then
that
by having AI do more for us, it will allow us to be more human?
I hope so. I hope so. I can't give a definitive answer, but
Mm.
I mean, if they can, if like right now, I spend most of my time on social media, making posts, commenting, doing a lot of stuff like that. If I can have AI do all that for me in my tone, sure, I'll probably do it. With that time, I'd rather spend playing with my kid, exercising more. Yeah, I do think it can help us.
It'll give us our time back, but then I guess it's up to us to determine what we do with that time.
Yeah, some people may just watch Netflix. That's not the right answer. That doesn't help your mental health, right? And I know
Damn
it's
it.
difficult to get off the couch and go exercise, but exercise is the easiest, fastest way to improve your mental health and at that time.
Yeah. Nice. With that being said, what are three? So these are questions I ask everybody as we kind of get into wrapping up here. Before I get to that, actually, real quick, yeah, you're 100% right. AI is simply a tool. It's up to us what we do with that tool, and then once we freed up our time, it's up to us to make sure that we use that time properly as well. So I'm glad that we've kind of wrapped up on that because I think that's really cool. Back to, like you said, exercise, one of the biggest things that you can do for your mental health and your well-being. So like I said, 3 questions, 2 series of 3 questions, so 6 if you want to keep count.
Sure.
The first one is, what are 3 things that you do every day that help you live a more positive life?
I make a coffee for my wife and myself every morning.
Yes.
It puts her in a good mood. It puts me in a good mood. We have our routines, right? I think routines are very powerful. We're habitual beings. So waking up every morning and just knowing what I'm going to do, not having to think about it, just go up. She's, oh, thank you. Yeah, we both start on a good day.
Yeah.
That's one thing I do. Another thing I do every day is I wash my son. I have a 7-month-old boy, and I do a bath with him. I wash him, and that, it's a bedtime routine. Another routine. What do you know?
There it
Routines
is.
are important. Try to create order out of chaos. That's in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. He talks about that, right? One of the missions of life is to create order from chaos. Routine from
Nice.
no routine.
So morning routine, evening routine, and is there something in between?
I almost always cook lunch. I like cooking, similar to brewing, right? They're both a form of cooking. And I cook pretty healthy. Almost always vegetarian. I try to eat fairly light. Sometimes I go out with family. We have chicken, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's another routine. Yeah, I guess that's about it. That's my livelihood routines. Other times
Yeah.
I'm commenting on social media, but at the end of the day, whatever.
Yeah, I like that. It's like, yeah, make sure you have a good morning routine, a good evening routine. Those are huge.
Yeah,
kind of like,
I agree.
do something
Super important.
whether it's cooking something you enjoy every day or eating healthy. Those are really good tips. The next 3 are similar, but I kind of want to have them more as in like, if you can try to do it in like a sentence, so to speak,
Sure.
Or quick fire. But what do you think are the 3 most important things to living a positive life?
Attitude, Always be positive if you can. Eating healthy. Don't eat fried foods, sugars, cut back on them. And push yourself.
Yes.
Go like we talked about, right? Go through the fog, because you'll either survive or you won't, and that's okay. Don't be scared of death.
Oh man, that was good. Have the right attitude, look after yourself, and push yourself. Which I guess it's hard to push yourself if you're not looking after yourself and you have the right attitude. So it's neat those are kind of came in succession.
Boom, boom.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, that's so good. Man, Ty, this has been amazing. I feel like I've learned a lot, and I feel a lot more aware and definitely more positive in the view of AI and what we can do with it. I'm definitely gonna get a quote somewhere with that.
Amen, brother.
That AI is what we make of it, and we have to make it sure it's positive. There's an interesting book. I don't know if you've read, going off topic now, but I don't know if you've read Scary Smart. I haven't read it yet, but I just heard about it the other day, and it's a lot about that. It's that concept, so I think you should definitely.
I'll read it.
Yeah, definitely check that out if that's something you're interested in. But yeah, as we wrap up here, just want to quickly shout out as well. If anybody hasn't yet, by all means, guys, I would love it if you follow the newsletter. The link is just at the bottom there, freemanbeals.substack.com, and you can see all kind of information like this. I dive into deep dives on a lot of different positivity things and stuff like that. You can find me as well on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me on all those spaces at Freeman Beals. So have a look for me there. And as for Ty, his linked tree is in the description as well, and all this other stuff. But your big thing is the MLM marketing. That's the website that kind of a lot of stuff is under.
Yep.
And the new marketing brew. So I'm assuming there's hashtags you can follow with that, or if there's any other place people can find that information, where should they go?
Sure. Yeah. If you go to multilayeredmarketing.xyz, that on that website, there's also the Wokies, which is my woke community of small NFT project I'm developing AI. Also metabrewsociety.com is the NFT brewery that I'm working with right now.
Nice. So if you like beer and you want to kind of start to explore the Web3 space a little bit more, definitely check that out, because I think you guys are doing a lot of cool stuff with that there. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much, Ty. I really appreciate you making the time coming on here today. I had a blast. I definitely learned some cool stuff. I hope everybody listening as well learned some cool stuff, and we'll have to stay in touch for sure, Ty. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay.